the Redskins Over the Hill gang and just alumni, they had a great event out at FedEx Field a couple of weeks ago. And, we got a chance to talk to some of those guys. And the Over the Hill gang, I think they had a great defense. They were run by George Allen. And let's hear what some of those guys had to say about when they played for the Redskins.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed playing for Coach Allen, mainly because of his defensive system, and mainly because we controlled it on the field. We didn't have microphones in our helmets. We didn't have anybody talking to us. We called the defenses right there on the field. We could audibilize anything at any time, and everybody knew what they were supposed to do in every defense, and it was just a lot of fun to work that way.
We were considered defensive generals together, so we spent a lot of time studying the opponents, but Chris could always anticipate what the next play was going to be, and sometimes he'd be accused of jamming the quarterback signals. We just knew their offense better than they knew it themselves sometimes.
All of those guys on George Allen's defense, from Pat Fisher to Brig Owens to Chris, they were called the generals. They were George's generals. They were very, very smart. And so they're the kind of guys that they weren't the biggest, they weren't the strongest, and they weren't the fastest, but they were sure as heck the brightest defensive guys in the league. And while you might get some plays on them in the beginning of the game, by the second half, they'd figure out how to pick your pocket, and we Redskins always scored on defense, unlike this defense. The Redskins always scored because those guys were so smart. They would figure out the offensive side of the ball, and then they'd start to take the ball away.
We just had a massive array of defenses, and you'd be amazed when you line up defensively, and you're in a little different position than you were from the last 2 or 3 times, and that quarterback's looking, and he starts thinking now, but yet we can run the same stuff from different lineups like that. But that was the fun of it, and we just all thoroughly enjoyed it. And plus, we liked the tag of being the Overhill gang, bunch of old guys just trying to have fun, and we kind of related with the everyday fan, and we wanted to win not only for ourselves and the coaches, but for the city itself.
All right, the Over the Hill gang, and those guys really played some great defense, and they were playing for George Allen. But one thing that Chris was telling me, and so was Brig Owens, is that they didn't have a mic in their helmet. I mean, once they learned that defense and learned the game plan for that game. I mean, they called everything themselves out there on the field, and they didn't rely on George Allen. They knew what he wanted, though.
Right. Well, back in those days, the players, both on offense and defense, called their own signals. And it was Brig Owens, Chris Hanburger, Kenny Houston, Pat Fisher, those guys, defensive line, Ron McDole. Like these guys are saying, there were some very, very smart players out there, and they knew how to out-scheme the offenses. And they also created a lot of points, turnovers, and there was a lot of cohesiveness on that team, offense and defense. And that's something we don't see as much today because the players are moving in and out. The Redskins could develop that over the years. That's what they really need to stabilize this team. They need the roster to remain the same. And so it could happen, but there was just those players remained together.
Is that kind of like what's going on over with the Ravens with their defense?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
because they've been together for a
yeah,
while.
they've been together,
All the good
and the
Steelers.
leaders are still there. You know.
But
Right.
even if you don't have that, these guys, they talked about, and I was listening to them as far as the relationships. Because what happened is the offensive line, the defensive line used to spend time after practice playing cards or doing anything, developing that relationship with each other instead of going their separate ways after practice was over. Most of these guys, when practice is over, they're gone. So it's not those relationships that's built that, that carries on the field.
All right.
Right. The thing about George Allen, which obviously a number of them referred to, is that he would try and know the opponent better than that team knows itself, okay? And he transferred all of that information to his players. So that's one major way they would try to outsmart the opposition. And George Allen, I mean, his life revolved around football. It was 24/7. He was watching tape all the time. And he was a great special teams coach as well.
But like you said, Marvin, maybe they're getting away from the things that made them understand a defense better because you've got, like you said, the mics and everything in the helmets and so forth, where they may not necessarily have to learn as much as they did because they had to memorize all that stuff before.
And the defensive players are on the field. They have a better feel for the game than somebody up in the booth, right?
Exactly.
And so maybe that's why on third downs, big third down plays, they came through. Because they had more of a feel for, hey, what's this guy going to do on third down or whatever.
And what did George say? They were always changing the defense. And Chris Hanburger said, even though that defense was this, that it could be 5 or 6 different ways that you can change up that defense to fit what the offense was giving you. And that maybe is something we're not seeing these days.
All right. Well, let's hear what Ron McDole had to say, because I actually went one-on-one with Ron McDole. And he is the dancing bear. That's the guy that I was talking about as the dancing bear. So let's see what Ron McDole had to say about that old team.
Dancing Bear, talk about how you got that name.
Well, Sonny kind of tagged that on to him, and it was from the Paul Mall in Georgetown, Paul Lucas on that, and we were down there on Monday or Tuesday. I remember Pat Summerall was there, and who was the other kid from Philadelphia? Brookshire. And anyway, we were talking about, and I think it was that Sonny said he could dance on one of those little cocktail things longer than I could. And he fell off before I did, so they started calling me the Dancing Bear, and they took it up above, and I think everybody thought they called me the Dancing Bear because I looked like a bear out on the field, but they didn't realize I got it in the bar. But anyway, it was fun, and a lot of guys had nicknames and stuff like that, but that's how they really get created. Somebody tags a name on you one way or something like that, but it was funny.
What's your fondest memory of playing for the Redskins?
Oh, gosh. I was very fortunate. I used to block a lot of kicks and things like that, and I had interceptions, but we played in Minnesota here one year, and we were way ahead of them and went in the locker room and then came back out, and they scored about 30 points. And they came down at the end of the ball game, and they were on about the 20-yard line, 30-yard line, and they had to kick a field goal to win the game, and I blocked the kick. And that was probably the individualist thing, because that's one thing that I could say I did. I actually stopped them from winning the game. Of course, they could have missed it.
But no, you blocked that
Right.
punt.
So that stands. But there was,
You actually came straight through that line.
Yeah,
I remember that.
There's a long story behind that. Well, Ron, we used to do things like it. Today, I don't think they even work on it. We used to work on things like, because we were always on the field. We never came off, in a sense. Like they didn't take us in and out for running situations or passing. You went out there and you played the whole time unless you got hurt. And it was very unusual. And so I was, when there was a lot of scoring, so every time it was Ron Yeri, who I think is the best tackle in the Hall of Fame. They finally got in the Hall of Fame, but one of the best tackles I ever played against. And I would take it inside on him all the time, and so on. And then all of a sudden, when I didn't go inside, I went the other. He bit on the inside move, and I went around him, and he said, first thing he said, "You got me, you got me." So those things happen. You work on them, not always.
What's the biggest differences now in pro football and the NFL?
A lot of money. No, the biggest difference is that the players train to be professional athletes, really do. They start, parents, because there's a lot of money involved in now. Like when I was started out, I was playing baseball. I wanted to be a baseball player, and I went to university, that kind of stuff. But it's just that there's so much money involved, and getting kids into school and paid for it's such a big thing now. And so the players almost seems like a lot of them are like hired guns. They come, they change teams. It's hard. Very few teams are like starting. And when we played, you build a team and you want to keep them together. Like the Packers were, and people like that a long period of times, and the Giants and stuff like that. And now it's like, well, look at this year. I'm from an old ex-Buffalo Bill for many years, and no one gave them a chance. And then look at the 49ers, and there's teams, and the Lions, for example, like one-year wonders. Those teams are serious. But that's the difference. You can make some trades, get some people moved around, get a coach in the right place. You got a team. Now you can create teams in a hurry.
All right. Can we ever have another team like that?
I think that's where the cohesiveness comes into play again. You can build a team like what the Steelers have done over the years, Indianapolis Colts, the Ravens, for instance. Mm-hmm. It's possible to do it in today's day and age, but the Redskins need layers and layers of depth, and you get that depth through the draft. And that draft was totally neglected in recent years. We hardly had any picks. That's how you build a team.
And you know what, but it'll be hard because with free agency and everything, that didn't happen back then, those days. Those guys played for 5 or 6, 7 years with the same team, but normally these days that doesn't happen too often.
All right. Well, hopefully the Redskins will get it together and we'll have a good, strong defense. It looks like it's a strong defense in the making right now, especially with Kerrigan and Arakpo.
Yeah.
Well, Kerrigan's a star.
Those
in the
guys
making.
are studs.
Yeah.
So hopefully they'll get it together. They're going to have to find somebody to replace London Fletcher in a few years, though.
Oh, yeah. But I think he's got maybe two
Got
more
a couple
years.
more
About
years.
2 more.
Yeah, a couple
His
more
motor
years.
is still
Yeah.
going very strong
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
16 tackles against the Cowboys.
That's a lot of tackles for a linebacker.
Well, let's talk about this game this weekend. The Redskins and the Seahawks. Who do you pick in that game?
I'm going to take Seattle in that game.
Okay.
Seattle's a very hard place to play, as the Redskins have learned in recent years, losing 2 playoff games there. I think that what happened against the Cowboys may be an anomaly in terms of what the Redskins can do. I think they're going to come out flat against Seattle, and they're going to probably stay that way for the remainder of the season. I mean, it's easy for them to get up for the Cowboys. They know it's a rivalry game, although looking back at these guys who played in the 70s, it doesn't hold the same intensity as it did back then. But they knew it was a rivalry game and a game they really wanted to win. I don't think they're going to beat Seattle.
What do you think, Donna?
It's going to be hard because you're on the road and you have to look at this team to see can they play back-to-back game offensively good. Seattle has 2 big cornerbacks that the Redskins are going to have to go up against. But I mean, they can be beat, but I think for the Redskins, it's going to be tough because I haven't seen them put together 2 back-to-back games yet. And like you said, they were playing against their rivals, Cowboys.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the rest of the NFL. The 49ers and the Packers right now are on top of the NFC. And, of course, the Packers are rolling. They are really playing well. What do you guys think there? Who's going to last out at the end?
I think the Packers are going to take it all in the NFC, but I don't think they're going to go undefeated in the regular season. I think what New England did a few years ago, that's not going to be repeated for a while. And you see they even lost in the Super Bowl. Somebody's going to beat the Packers along the way, but I think they're going to outlast the 49ers.
And they're pretty solid. And when you look at San Francisco, though, that's another good team that has surprised everybody. But when you've got Aaron Rodgers, a quarterback like him, and all the other weapons that you got on that team, they're really balanced. They're a balanced team. And that's the reason why they probably don't want to go undefeated, because headed into the playoffs, you got that one oops, and you probably want to get that out the way before the playoffs.
Can I just say this about Jim Harbaugh, the 49ers coach? He deserves a lot of credit for what he's done this year. You got to remember, they were in a lockout in the offseason. So you have a new coach coming in right now, and they are 9-1 at this point. That's a phenomenal achievement.
But the good thing about it is he has those same players, but it's just a different coach. And it's amazing that he's got them playing better than they were last year.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us.
Thank you, Marvin.
Again, it's always a pleasure having you with us. And we'd also like to Mike's books. Talk about your book.
I have 2 books that I've written. One is the Washington Redskins Football Vault, and the other one is the Redskins Encyclopedia. Right. And for more information, anyone can go to my website, which is redskinshistorian.com. I also want to say that I'm going to start hosting a radio show on Sports Talk 570 called Redskins Legacy. It'll debut on Sunday from 9:30 to 10.
All right.
Outstanding.
All right. Well, we hope everybody has an enjoyable Thanksgiving, a tasty Thanksgiving. For you guys, you like turkey? You guys like turkey?
Roasted turkey.
I like turkey.
Not
I like
really.
turkey.
Not really.
I ate all the turkey
as long as
at the Redskins tailgate.
As long as we don't consider the Redskins turkeys, right? All right. So, Donna, For Donna and Mike, I'm Marvin Jackson, and for all of us with the Sideline Report, we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.